You were there. You were present for some of the most significant moments of your life. Your first breath, your first word, the first time you recognized a face you loved, the first time you felt fear or joy, or the particular warmth of being held by someone who would not let you go. And you remember none of it. Not a single frame, not a fragment of sensation, not even the faintest impression of what it felt like to be you in those first years of your life. The earliest memories most people carry begin somewhere around age 3 or 4. Everything before that is simply gone, a blank, an absence so complete that it does not even feel like forgetting. It feels like those years belong to someone else. This phenomenon has a name. Psychologists call it childhood amnesia, or sometimes infantile amnesia. And while it is so universal that most people never question it, the explanation is far stranger, far more revealing, and far more connected to who you are right now than you might expect. Start with what memory actually is. Memory is not a recording. This is the first and most important thing to understand. Your brain does not work like a camera, capturing moments and storing them as fixed files you can later play back. Memory is a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain actively rebuilds it, pulling fragments from different neural systems, filling in gaps, updating the memory with new information, and reassembling it into something that feels continuous and accurate, but is, in fundamental ways, a creative act. There are multiple memory systems operating in your brain simultaneously. The one most people mean when they say memory is called episodic memory, the ability to mentally travel back in time to a specific event and re-experience it with its context, its emotion, its sense of when and where it happened. Episodic memory is the system that stores your memories of birthdays, conversations, the face of someone you once loved. It is also the system that is essentially offline for the first 2 to 3 years of your life. The reason comes down to a structure deep in your brain called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the brain's memory indexer, the region that binds together the different elements of an experience into a single retrievable episode. Without hippocampal involvement, you might experience something fully. You might feel it, react to it, be changed by it, but you cannot form a lasting explicit memory of it. And the hippocampus in human infants is profoundly immature. Neuroscientist Patricia Bauer at Emory University has spent decades studying the development of memory in infants and young children. What her research shows is that the hippocampus undergoes dramatic development in the first years of life, with new neurons being generated and integrated into existing circuits, a process called neurogenesis that continues through toddlerhood and beyond. But here's the critical detail. During this period of rapid neurogenesis, the new neurons being added to the hippocampus disrupt the existing memory circuits. The very process of growth interferes with storage. Paul Frankland and Sheena Josselyn at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto have studied this mechanism in animal models with elegant precision. They found that when they artificially increased the rate of neurogenesis in adult mice, flooding the hippocampus with new neurons the way it would be flooded in infancy, the adult mice forgot memories they had previously formed. And when they suppressed neurogenesis in infant mice, the young animals showed improved memory retention. The growth itself was causing the forgetting. Your hippocampus was too busy becoming itself to remember what you were experiencing while it did. But there is a second reason, and it is more philosophical, more strange. Memory is not just a neural process, it is also a narrative process. To form an episodic memory that you can later retrieve and reflect on, you need more than a functioning hippocampus. You need a self to anchor the memory to, a stable, continuous sense of who you are, an identity that persists through time, that can say, "This happened to me." Infants do not have this, not fully, not yet. The sense of self that underlies autobiographical memory, the feeling of being a continuous I moving through time, develops gradually through early childhood, in tandem with language, with social interaction, with the ability to understand that the you of yesterday and the you of today are the same entity. Psychologist Robyn Fivush at Emory University has shown that children begin to organize their experiences into a coherent personal narrative only once they have developed enough language and enough social understanding to hear and tell stories about themselves. This is why the memories that do survive earliest childhood are almost always verbal, embedded in language, shaped by the stories other people told. About the events afterward. Your first day of preschool is more likely to be a memory if someone told you about it repeatedly. The story became the memory. The narrative scaffolding held what the neural architecture could not. What this means is that memory, at its deepest level, is a social act. It is built between people, not just inside them. The memories you carry from your earliest years are largely the ones that were encoded with language, rehearsed in conversation, and shaped by the stories your family told. Your past is, to a degree that most people find unsettling, a collaborative construction. There is another layer to this that researchers have begun to document in recent years. The age at which childhood amnesia ends, the earliest point from which people carry memories, varies significantly across cultures. Psychologist Qi Wang at Cornell University has conducted extensive cross-cultural research on earliest memories. What she found is striking. Western cultures, particularly individualistic ones, tend to emphasize personal memories, detailed, emotionally vivid, centered on the individual's unique experience. East Asian cultures, which tend to be more collectivist, show earlier memories that are more focused on group events and social relationships, and often show a somewhat later onset of autobiographical memory. Children who grow up in cultures that frequently rehearse personal narratives with them, who are regularly asked what happened today, how did that make you feel, what do you remember, develop earlier and more detailed autobiographical memories than children in cultures where such rehearsal is less common. Your earliest memory is not just a product of your brain. It is a product of the culture you grew up in, the stories your family told, and the language you had available to make sense of what you experienced. And then there is the question of what those early years did leave behind. Because infantile amnesia is not total amnesia. You were not simply absent from your own early life, experiencing nothing, storing nothing. You were learning at a rate that will never be matched again. You were acquiring language. You were developing attachment patterns that would shape every close relationship you would ever have. You were forming emotional responses, behavioral tendencies, sensory preferences, laying down the architecture of your personality in ways that left no explicit memories but left everything else. The technical term for this is implicit memory. While your episodic memory system was offline, your procedural memory was working perfectly. Your emotional memory was working. Your body was learning how to be held, how to expect comfort or its absence, how safe or unsafe the world of other people felt, whether connection was reliable or unpredictable, whether your needs would be met. Developmental psychologist John Bowlby spent his career documenting how the attachment patterns formed in those first remembered years, laid down in the implicit, body-level, nonverbal memory that never makes it into conscious recollection, shape adult relationships in ways that people cannot articulate because they cannot remember the source. The adult who flinches from intimacy or clings to it desperately or manages it with practiced ease is following a script written before they had words. You do not remember learning to need people, but your body remembers. Your nervous system remembers. Your patterns of attachment, your tolerance for closeness, your expectations of abandonment or safety. All of it encoded in those early years you cannot recall. The blank at the beginning of your story is not empty. It is the most consequential chapter you will never be able to read. You were there. You experienced all of it. You felt it, responded to it, were shaped by it in ways that reach into every part of who you are. The first face you loved is gone from your conscious memory, but somewhere in the structure of how you love, in the ease or difficulty of trust, in what safety feels like, in how close you let people get, that face is still present. You cannot remember being a baby, but the baby remembers being you.